We're now going to continue our navigation around the workspace down the bottom part of the screen. So next to this block of icons we looked at in the last video, which are to do with navigation around your model, we've got this block of icons which are to do with the way the information is being presented to you. So in this first option, which is display settings, which looks like a TV monitor, we've got quite a few different menus in this particular area. The one at the very top is visual style, so this is the way the model is being rendered to you on the screen at the moment. So at the moment I've got shaded with visible edges only, which is probably the best option to pick if you're general modeling, because those visible edges actually give you a clue where you can actually apply and do things when we start modeling in Fusion 360. So those visible edges are actually quite useful. But if you do want those edges taken off, if you click on the shaded option, that will take those lines out and give you a much better representation of how that model will look. Also, under visual style, you can actually elect to have maybe a wireframe drawing, and a wireframe might be good if you're going to use this perhaps for illustrative purposes. So that's an option that you can take also under visual style. So I'm just going to put that back to shaded with visible edges because that's the most useful option to have. And also in this particular menu, I just want to show this camera option. So under camera, the best option to have picked here is the one that's currently shown on the screen, which is perspective with ortho faces. So what does that mean? Well, perspective means that there's some vanishing point information going into the view that's currently on the screen. So it's giving you a much better 3D realistic view of how your product would look. However, the ortho faces part of it means that as soon as you go to the view cube and click on one of these faces, that takes you to an orthographic view, which means that the perspective now has been completely taken out of that view, and this is the sort of view that you'd expect to see maybe on a 2D drawing. So that's the best option to have selected under the camera menu. Next to that, we've got a grids and snaps menu. This kind of graph paper background that you've got, some people like it, some people don't like it. This is where you've got the option to actually deselect it if you don't like it. So layout grid will take out that layout grid if you want to. What you'll notice with this layout grid is as you zoom in and out, the scale of the layout grid changes dynamically. So this kind of graph paper changes scale as you scroll in and out. Down below that particular area, we've got this set of icons that you can see across the bottom, and this is what's called the timeline. So in any future videos where we talk about the timeline, we're referring to this set of icons that runs along the bottom of the screen. What this represents is every action that was taken to actually build this 3D model. And what you're able to do is actually use these icons to the left hand side and actually play through each one of these actions. So if I click on the play button, it's now going to show you dynamically on the screen how this model was built by running through each one of those actions in sequence that's in that timeline. So you can see that torch being built step by step using each one of these particular actions. Now, timeline is hugely powerful in Fusion 360 because one of its key attributes is if I go to any one of these icons and hover over it, for instance, that's the one that created that tab with a hole in it at the end. If I right click on it and go edit sketch, it's going to take me into that particular feature where I created that hole, and maybe I want that hole to be bigger, so I've just grabbed that and made it bigger, and when I click stop sketch now, it's updated the model to include that change. So the timeline is your opportunity to go back at any point in your design and make a change and then have the model rebuild itself to include that change. So that covers those tools that are most useful down at the bottom part of the screen.